Hey friends, Sean from Draft Therapy here, and on today's review for you, hopefully this one performs better than the stock market is. Barrel-aged stock ale is a 10% bourbon barrel-aged old ale from Guinness Open Gate Brewery in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, I like Guinness Stout for what it is, but I don't know if it's necessarily the kind of stout that I like, if that makes any sense. Of course, I'd buy it at a bar if there wasn't a whole bunch of other good options, but it's not something I'd go out and buy if I was shopping for beer on my own. There's a time and a place, in my opinion, for Guinness. But the Guinness Open Gate Brewery is the first Guinness brewery on American soil for over 60 years, and they've been cranking out a few of these barrel-aged Guinness versions for about maybe a little over a year or so now. They did a blonde Guinness as well. I've never had one of the beers from the Open Gate yet, so I'm looking forward to trying this one out. But of course, before we crack it open, we got to take a look at the label. Fun fact, it officially takes 119.5 seconds to pour a perfect pint of Guinness. And there's a 6-step PDF available on their website that tells you all about it. So if you're interested, I'll put a link below this video. You can try out and try to perfect your perfect pour of your own. So let's go ahead and take a look at the label here. The label itself is really cool. It's textured, it's embossed, it has a nice feel to it. You can kind of rub on it as much as you want. It says Open Gate Guinness Brewery on the front. Baltimore, Maryland has the trademarked harp on it, and has this gold wavy kind of embossing, and underneath it looks like almost like a leather kind of stamp on it, or a leather tag. It says stock ale aged in Bulleit Bourbon Barrels. It's 10% alcohol by volume, 11.2 fluid ounces. I want to just hold this up to the microphone. I'm going to rub it so you can hear what it sounds like. Hopefully you could hear that. And then on the back, it says, this stock ale is a blend of imperial, stout, and barley wine ale, both aged in Bulleit bourbon barrels, roasty and chocolatey, with notes of sweet, dark fruit. Then it has the government warning, brewed and bottled by Guinness Brewing Company, Baltimore, Maryland. Drink responsibly at Guinness.com and DrinkIQ.com, which I've never been to DrinkIQ.com. I'm not advocating that, but if you want to check it out, you can, and I probably will after I record this. And then, of course, it has the Guinness embossing, like on the actual glass bottle itself. Let's go ahead and find the handy-dandy bottle opener and a glass. I'm going to use a large snifter glass for this one. Ooh, you heard the quality. I just dung it off the top. And then these bottle caps have the harp on it, the trademarked harp. I'm not sure if that's unique for these bottles or not, but we're going to put a nose on the glass on the bottle here. I almost said the can. Ooh, that smells good. It's got a lot of bourbon notes in it. It's almost overwhelmingly bourbon. I do smell maybe a tiny bit of dark fruit in there as well. Let's go ahead and pour this. A little lighter than I was expecting coming out of the bottle. It's collecting rather dark, though, in the glass itself. I would say that's maybe like a finger and a half, borderline finger to finger and like a quarter of head. It's not a finger and a half. It's just a little bit less than that. The head is just a little bit off-white, a little bit tan, a little bit lighter than I was expecting. But again, it's a blend, right? So it's like almost a cuvee. It's an imperial stout and barley wine, as they say on the bottle here. And we'll hold this up to the light. It's got a lot of stouts that I've been getting recently in this little bulb here have been more of a crimson, reddish brown color. This is almost through and through the bulb. I'm talking about the very bottom of this glass. You can't see it on camera, but it's almost like straight up yellow through there. So it does look, it's like got a brownish hue to it. It's not super dark. It has a little bit of a ruby redness around the edges, but it's just really kind of light. And the head is actually really still hanging on. I'm surprised about that. So let's put a better nose on the glass here. Yeah, just getting a lot of bourbon. Getting a little bit, like I said, a little bit of a dark fruit kind of aroma. Maybe almost getting like a caramel kind of smell too, but it's mostly dark fruit and a lot of bourbon, like big time bourbon. So let's go ahead and down the hatch. Let's try it out. Cheers. So I'm getting a lot of sweetness from the bourbon. I'm getting a nutty kind of quality, a nutty character in there as well. I'm getting like A little bit. It's not as much as it smells like bourbon. It's not, the flavor itself isn't overwhelmingly bourbon. I'm getting I'm getting bourbon notes, but they're not super overpowering. I'm getting some kind of smoky characteristic. I'm getting some nutty notes, some nutty characteristics as well. And I am getting some dark fruit, and if I'm getting chocolate, it's really super deep in there, but it's almost more of a toffee kind of flavor. Like it's not so much chocolate, but more of toffee. So let's go ahead and let me just try and see if I can break this down. Like I'll take a sip, I'll swish it around, maybe a drink, and then I'll talk about the opening kind of salvo, and then kind of work through it that way. So let's try out first impressions. First impressions is most of where that bourbon kind of flavor comes through. It's got a lot of barrel characteristic, a lot of kind of like an oaky barrel characteristic right up front. On the swallow is more of a thin molasses kind of flavor. Yeah, it's kind of just like a molasses kind of deal in there. It's not, maybe that's dark fruit and molasses kind of mixing together. Then on the finish is more of where that, a little bit more of the dark fruit comes out to shine. That's where that nutty and toffee kind of characteristic really start to pop through, is on the finish, on the close. And then it also has a bit of a dark fruit flavor in there as well, but it's really kind of odd that it's really separated like that. Like I can taste some of the dark fruit, some of the toffee notes come throughout the entire taste. And then I think also on the finish is where this smoky characteristic come through. So it's segmented in flavor that way and tastes that way. So let's just do a really quick taste. Really quick taste, a lot more of the oaky barrel characteristic comes through. Really complex beer. It doesn't really have a 10% kind of smack to the face like I would expect. For as bourbon kind of forward as it smelled out of the bottle and a little bit out of the glass, I'm not picking up so much on any kind of bourbon kind of burn at all. I'm not getting a whole lot of bourbon characteristic except on the upfront and maybe on the finish. Now, I've never had Bulleit bourbon before, so I don't know. I can't really say for sure if that's like a characteristic of Bulleit bourbon, but I'm not getting anything that's really super overwhelmingly bourbon. It's a really good beer that just kind of melds all these flavors together. Now, I don't know if trying this, if I think at all imperial stout or barley wine. Like I don't think of either of those things. And of course, it is a blend. I do have more, like if I think of old ale in my head, then this ties more into like an old ale. So, and the other old ale that I can really kind of relate this to would be like Curmudgeon's Better Half. So maybe it's more like Curmudgeon than it is any kind of imperial stout and barley wine. But I think this is it's a pretty good beer. Like I would not mind picking this up and using it as a sipper. I wouldn't, advocate doing what I'm doing and just like, oh, let's think about it. Okay, let's take another big gulp. Like I wouldn't do that normally if I were to buy this beer on its own. But I can see it being a sipper. I would think it'd be like a once in a while kind of beer. And I think that's a good reason, for Guinness's Open Gate Brewery to do it like that, to release it in 6-pack and be super limited, because this hit stores. And then I was lucky enough to find a couple singles. I saw it once as a 6-pack in like a Kroger, and then I never saw it in that Kroger again. And the Krogers near me aren't that great about stocking stuff like this. But I think it's a good beer if you know what you're getting into. If you think you're going to get a Guinness, if you're a Guinness fan and you think you're going to get Guinness, you're not going to get Guinness. If you think if you're a Guinness fan and you think you're going to get a stout, you're not going to get much of a stout. But if looking into it and you're looking for it and hey, I'm going to go into this, I'm going to get an old ale, and I'm going to get those flavors, I'm going to get those leveled characteristics, I think this is a really interesting beer to pick up. And if you're a craft beer enthusiast, I think it's one to try, because I can't think off the top of my head of a beer other than Curmudgeon that has been so multifaceted in this style. I think Curmudgeon is a lot more sweeter than this. It tastes like something you'd probably put more on pancakes than this does. This doesn't have so many sweet characteristics. The sweetness that it does have, though, is really tempered by that nuttiness, that oakiness. So it's just a really interesting beer. And I would say if you're a craft beer enthusiast, and if you're watching this channel, I don't know why you're watching it if you're not a craft beer enthusiast, but I would say this is worth the pickup if you want to try something different that you may not expect from Guinness. All right, friends, that has been Guinness Bourbon Barrel Aged Stock Ale. Have you had this one before? Have you had any of the Open Gate Barrel Aged beers before? Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. And while you're down there, if you like beer, you might want to subscribe and click that bell, because I'm here talking about beer twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's all for free for viewers just like you, and you might miss your newest favorite if you're not subscribed. So until next time, I'm Sean from Draft Therapy. Thanks for stopping by. Remember, drink craft beer, support your local breweries. I know this isn't a local one, but support your local breweries. There's obviously, with all the stuff that's going on right now, it's really difficult for them to keep the doors open. If you can buy a gift certificate, if you can buy merch, swag, if you can stop in and pick up beer to go, please do. Please keep these places around, because once all this craziness passes, I would still love to go into these places. I'm sure you would too. And most importantly, don't forget to treat yourself to a little draft therapy. Thanks for watching. Cheers.